everybody. In today's video, we're going to talk about why flexible dieting just doesn't work for some people. Now, I myself, am a huge promoter of flexible dieting, and that's what I have all my clients do. But for some people, it just doesn't work. And although, it may be the reason why, they just don't feel comfortable switching in foods and whatnot, I don't think that's the biggest reason. I think, honest to God, the biggest reason why people cannot do flexible dieting is that they don't know how to budget their diet. So let's think of your diet like your monthly income, right? And you only get to eat a certain amount of food per day, and you only can make a certain amount of money per month. So what a lot of people do, and I mean this kind of is a reflection of America, we tend to get into debt a lot. So debt would be overeating. And we do not really go into a day with a plan. We know that, we're going to eat breakfast, lunch, pre-workout meal, post-workout shake, and dinner, but we don't plan accordingly with our flexible dieting plan. You might be a little bit more hungry when you wake up, so you might eat a little bit more. And then, your post-workout meal might be a little larger, than it should be. And then by the end of the day, you're stuck with eating nothing. And, I'm sure, that, if you follow flexible dieting and you've been through a contest prep before, you've done this. I know I've done this. But really, it's about budgeting your food throughout the day. So what I recommend for people that have a hard time, really hitting their numbers, because I think when a lot of people use apps like MyFitnessPal or MyMacros+, and we mindlessly scan things in and we punch it and we add it in and it auto-calculates and we kind of just glance at it throughout the day and we see where we're at. Well, although that is super convenient, right? Let's talk about like MyFitnessPal and like a credit card. So it's easy just to swipe your credit card and pay for something. It's easy to enter something in on MyFitnessPal and enter it and be done with it. But when we enter, let's say, something like a pasta, one serving of pasta is roughly, 40 grams of carbohydrates. We don't necessarily put it in our minds that, oh man, that was 40, and our daily allowance, let's say, is 120. That's a third of our daily allowance. Do we really want to spend that on pasta? Or, for instance, if we're out at the store and we use our credit card, we're going out to dinner, and it's $100, and we just throw our credit card down, on the tray when it comes, and okay, boom, $100. Instead, if you want to really feel your money, you would use cash. If you want to feel your macros, you would actually get out pen and paper and write down per meal exactly what you're eating. I know that may sound a little bit tedious, but honest to God, it's only going to take you a couple extra minutes a day. And I think for a lot of people, it's going to help them actually budget their macros. So let's say that you're going to eat your pre-workout meal, and although you want to have a little bit more carbohydrates in that meal, you don't necessarily want to overindulge on the carbs just to boost performance a little bit, because you know that you're going to have to eat later on in the day. So you don't want to eat all your carbs and be done with your carbs at noon and you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. You can't spend 10 hours basically not eating. So that's really the downfall of flexible dieting and why some people just can't do it. And I'm not saying, that they're the same people that don't know how to manage their money, but I feel like they go hand in hand. If you look at your daily allowance in calories or macros as the same as your monthly allowance, let's say your earnings, and you actually budget a plan, so you know exactly where your carbs, your fats, and your protein are go, and you know where your expenses are going to go for your income. If you learn how to actually budget your macros, flexible dieting can work for you. Now, I feel like a lot of people are afraid or lazy or whatever the reason is that they just don't budget their diets. They go into a day, it's the start of a new day like they've never done it before. And you do reach a point, such as myself, I've been tracking my macros for, over 6-7 years now, and it does come naturally to me. But as contest prep, gets into play and the calories start to be a little bit more restricted, I do find myself having to go meal by meal and being like, okay, I need to budget my fat for the day. I know I have to eat 2 more times, and I can't, I need to have, at least, 10 to 15 grams of fat for the rest of the day. Let's say if it's early afternoon. The same thing with carbs, the same thing with fat. So you really have to sit down, and if it is pen and paper, or if it is checking in with yourself on your MyFitnessPal app after every single time, honestly, if you're really struggling, I would get away from using MyFitnessPal for a little bit until you could really nail down your diet. Because some people come to me, after weeks of attempting to track their macros, and they're always saying, I go over, I go over, I go over. Well, that's because they're just not going into the day with a plan. They're going in and they're taking their old habits of mindlessly eating and plugging it into MyFitnessPal. And mindlessly eating, although if they eat the same things and they're still plugging it in, it's not going to add up to the numbers that we need. So instead, even if it is planning out your meals for the day and writing it down, once again, in contest prep, that's what I tend to do. Although, I try to add some variety in, when it comes down, when the rubber meets the road, I will plan out my meals almost for the entirety of the day. And that way I know I'm going to get in all my food, but I'm also going to space it out properly. I think that's where a lot of people downfall when it comes to flexible dieting. Now, I'm not here to tell you guys, not to do flexible dieting, because that's what I believe in, but you have to do it responsibly. And that's why when a lot of people start working with me, I don't really like to use the term flexible dieting. I use the term responsible dieting, because at the end of the day, we're all adults. We have to be responsible, not only for our money, but for the food that we're consuming. So let's try to put those, if we can, in the same frame of mind, and picture our macros and our monthly income as the same thing. And you want to allocate them accordingly to where we want to spend them. So hopefully, you guys could get a little bit better understanding of how to allocate your macros throughout the day, and especially for people who are just starting the flexible dieting journey. Get out that pen and paper and really write down every single thing that you're eating, so you could feel where your macros are going and you could visually see where you're allocating them. So hopefully you guys found this video informative. Like, subscribe, and comment below. See you in the next video.